Alright, welcome to our next unit of notes, that is cell division. We are going to start by talking about some of the big ideas. By the way, today is, or these are notes that we did today, which is the 2nd of December, just in case you missed. So what are the big ideas that we kind of are going to be touching upon, or hopefully answering, as we go through this unit? First of all, how do we get new cells? Okay, how do we get how are babies created, basically? And we get this new life. Are all cells the same? Is there any difference between your heart cell and your brain cell? Do cells live forever, or, do they die? I mean, we die, so what happens to our cells? So, starting with learning target number 1 and 2, we're going to talk about asexual and sexual reproduction just real quick. You guys have a really good understanding of this, so hopefully we can pass through it quickly. I would, however, suggest that you put down in your notes somewhere that this is learning target number 1 and 2, so that when you're studying and reviewing your notes, you know exactly where in your notes you need to go. Alright, types of reproduction. We're going to talk about sexual and asexual. So sexual reproduction is when you have the fusion of two gametes. Gametes is a vocabulary word that you should probably highlight or make note of. A gamete is an egg or a sperm cell. Okay, so when we have an egg and a sperm come together, they fuse together, they become one cell. That results in the offspring, and that offspring is a genetic mix of both the parents. Okay, asexual, we have offspring coming from just one parent, and they are genetically identical for the most part. Okay, you can still have random mutations, you can have environmental mutations, stuff like that, but for the most part they are genetically identical. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages when it comes into terms of survival for asexual. Okay, please note that both columns here are asexual reproduction. The column on the left is advantages, column on the right is disadvantages. So in asexual reproduction, the advantages are it is quick. Okay, which means if you have let's say a really good year, lots of rain, and you have lots of vegetation available, then something that asexually reproduces is going to be able to take advantage of those resources quicker than something that goes through sexual reproduction. And early bird gets the worm. Whoever gets the resources first flourishes, the other starves and dies. So it's quick, and it can take advantage of resources quickly, respond very quickly to that. All individuals can reproduce, so one cell is going to divide into 2, and each of those cells can then reproduce and make more. Okay, and it requires less time and energy because they don't need to go through any of the behaviors or produce any of the reproductive structures, or go to the trouble of finding a mate or an organism of a different gender, if you will. Okay, some disadvantages of asexual reproduction. If the environment changes, these guys are pretty much in a lot of trouble. So you have a picture here on the screen of sea anemones. Sea anemones go through asexual reproduction, which means they're able to spread very quickly, which means there's lots of them and they can grow, no problems. However, it means that as environments changing, like the salinity, the amount of salt in the ocean, which we are seeing, they can't adapt. They're all the same. And so if it kills one of them, it kills all of them. That's a huge disadvantage. Okay, now we're going to talk about the survival for sexual reproducing organisms. Alright, so, sexual reproduction advantages. So, we ended with the disadvantages for asexual is if the environment changes, they're all the same, so if it kills one, it kills all of them. Okay, that's the biggest advantage. to organisms that reproduce sexually is that you get a little bit of mom, a little bit of dad, you get some crossover, giving you unique, new, genetically different offspring, which means if it kills one, it might not necessarily kill brother or sister, which means your chances of your offspring surviving in the species to continue to exist are higher. Okay, and that's what it's all about when it comes to biology, is leaving your offspring. Okay, sexual reproduction disadvantages does take a lot of energy and a lot of time to find a mate. So I have this example here of this deer. As I know, many, maybe not many, but several of you are deer hunters. Thought you might appreciate this. This buck here has got a nice set of antlers, and if you think about it, people who hunt deer typically are looking for, they want a deer with a lot of points on their antlers. They want a big rack, okay, of antlers. Think about the deer. Is it easier for the deer to run through a forest with all these trees and these low-hanging branches if it's got this huge rack on top of its head? No, it's going to get caught in branches, and they do. Sometimes deer die because their antlers get tangled in wires or in branches, or sometimes when they're fighting with each other they get tangled and both of them die. Okay, and that's not very advantageous. Okay, what the antlers do is they show the ladies that this deer is healthy, strong, and can produce a large enough rack. Okay, it also helps the male to win the deer, the does, as they are fighting with other male deers. So all of it, all of those antlers, okay, all of it boils down to who can reproduce with the most does. Okay, how the male with the better rack, if you will, is going to be able to reproduce with more females. Now, an interesting fact, which I know we don't have much time, so I'll just briefly talk about it, is in Arizona they have found that since there's this selective pressure on these deer species to, hunters going out and hunting deer, the male deer with huge racks or huge antlers, they're finding their actual male deer that don't have antlers because they're the ones that are surviving. So, cool little side note, totally not related, sorry. Alright, so structures and behaviors and signals are costly. Birds are another great example of these. The males try to attract females with these, in most cases, with a very beautiful bright plumage. Okay, really bright feathers. Well, that's great unless you're trying to hide from a predator, and then your beautiful red and blue and green feathers are going to stick out like a sore thumb against the vegetation and stuff that you're trying to hide in. So it's costly to attract a mate, but I mean, it's obviously the advantage outweighs that cost. See, only females can bear offspring. That's also a disadvantage of sexual reproduction when you're looking in terms of species and trying to get as many of you out there as you can. Yeah, that's it. Learning check. So, which of the following is the difference between sexual and asexual reproduction? A, sexual reproduction is more likely to increase genetic variation than asexual reproduction, than asexual reproduction. B, only asexual reproduction results from the union of a sperm and an egg. C, cell division only occurs after sexual reproduction. Or D, only offspring from asexual reproduction inherit traits from two parents. I'll give you a couple of seconds. You can pause it if you need some more time. Okay, so correct answer here is A. Sexual reproduction is more likely to increase genetic variation than asexual reproduction. Okay, this is what it all boils down to. Genetic variation is the big advantage for sexual reproduction. Okay, asexual reproduction, you don't have a lot of genetic variation, but you can reproduce quicker, so that's an advantage of asexual. Okay, B is not correct because it says only asexual reproduction results from the union of a sperm and an egg. Okay, sperm and an egg, that's sexual reproduction. C, cell division occurs only after cell division occurs only after sexual reproduction. Well, that's not true. Cellular division occurs in sexual and asexual. Okay, and then D, only offspring from asexual reproduction inherit traits from two parents. Once again, if you've got two parents, you are looking at sexual, not asexual. Okay, which of the following are possible advantages of asexual reproduction? A, it enhances genetic variability in the species. B, it allows the species to adapt in unstable environmental conditions. C, it enables the species to reproduce rapidly. Or D, they expend energy looking for a partner. Okay, correct answer here is C. So, it enhances genetic variability in the species? No, because we're looking at asexual reproduction. Okay, the advantage is not genetic variability. That's a disadvantage for asexual reproduction. B, it allows the species to adapt in unstable environmental conditions? No, because if it kills one, it kills all of them. Okay, C, that's the correct answer. D, they expend energy looking for a partner. They don't need a partner because it's asexual reproduction. Okay, and that will conclude the notes for asexual and sexual reproduction.